Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Our top story, U.S.-China decoupling speeding up on the biotech front. A new bill is moving one step forward in the House. How does Beijing's ambition to collect American DNA play in? TikTok users are filing a First Amendment suit against the U.S. government. That's over a law that could ban the popular platform. YouTube is moving to block a protest anthem inside Hong Kong to comply with a court order banning the song. More on YouTube's response. And Filipino activists and fishermen are taking the sea in protest, together sailing 100 small boats near a disputed shoal in the South China Sea. We'll take a look at the footage. The U.S. taking another step to uproot China from the biotech supply chain. That's as a new bill passes a House committee Wednesday. Big players in the industry are already bracing for changes ahead. NTD's Juliet Song has the details.
A bill that could shake up U.S. biotech industry is moving closer to becoming law. It sets a new deadline, 2032. By then, U.S. companies must stop working with four Chinese biotech firms, BGI, Wuxi AppTec, MGI, and Complete Genomics. The bill would also ban federal agencies from contracting with these Chinese companies or using their equipment and services. Behind the push is one big concern that when American blood gets drawn at hospitals, the DNA information could end up in Beijing's hands. How could this happen? Some U.S. hospitals and research institutions use Chinese genome sequencing services because they're cheap. But this in turn allowed at least 15 Chinese firms to access American patients' genetic data. And if Beijing asks for it, under Chinese law, these companies can't say no. That's why lawmakers are targeting these four Chinese biotech companies. Among them, BGI is the leading genetic sequencing equipment maker on the U.S. market. Previously, the company harvested genetic data from 8 million pregnant women in Europe via prenatal tests and used it for research with the Chinese military. BGI denies giving data to Beijing. One of the world's biggest drug makers, Novartis, is already on the move to cut ties with Chinese drug makers. The White House says it would slap a 50% tariff on Chinese syringes and needles, plus an up to 25% tariff on Chinese face masks and surgical gloves. The bill still needs to move through the House and Senate before being signed into law. Juliet Song, NTD News.
To talk more about the U.S.-China trade war on health-related items, we spoke with Stephen Bryan, Senior Fellow at the Center for Security Policy. Stephen Bryan, thank you so much for joining us. Great to have you back on the show.
Pleasure to be with you, Tiffany.
Now, the Biden administration's new tariffs on China also include Chinese medical supplies like syringes, personal protective gear, face masks, respirators, etc. How much do you see the pandemic and the hit to the supply chains that we saw during that time fit into this move?
Well, it certainly fits in because we were very dependent on China for all these key supplies. And I don't know that we've done much to stockpile them for the future, which would have been a sensible thing for the government to do, given what happened. And yet, so now if we cut it off now, what are we going to do? Where are we going to get it from? I don't know. I mean, I don't think they know either. I think that's the problem here. Everybody's, wants to whack China because it's a good election move, but I don't think they're thinking this through at all.
And lately there's been a lot of talk of, say, Chinese unfair trade practices because a lot of the companies are state subsidized from the Chinese regime, unlike, a lot of the ones in America. But given the landscape we're seeing, how are we going to get to that balance where, people can get the things they need from other sources? Because right now it seems China dominates several sectors. How is that change going to happen?
Well, usually in the competitive world, you make investments into an industry, you compete. If you have a better product and a better price, you win. That's how it works. Now, of course, the Chinese government has underwritten in direct and indirect ways a number of their industries. because they wanted to establish them as powerhouses in the field and take over that segment of trade. That's been a constant situation, but that applies to just about everything coming out of China. So I think if you don't want to trade with China, then you make a decision, we're not going to trade with China, but we can't do that.
Expanding on that last part, what is the strategy the U.S. should be taking then when it comes to something like this?
Well, I think first of all, you have to have the willing. That is, the U.S. companies have to be willing to enter into that kind of competition and that kind of trade and want to do this. I don't see them lining up, especially lining up to get into business. Now, if they're protected by a tariff or by some other mechanism, that's not really competition. It's not really free trade. It's just as bad as what the Chinese do. It's subsidizing, and that's all it is subsidy, because the prices are going to be higher here, and the consumers are going to pay more.
Stephen, Brian, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Washington's new China tariffs are kicking up a fuss inside the communist regime. Beijing's foreign ministry hitting back at the policy Wednesday, calling it, quote, the most typical form of bullying. Prior to Washington's announcement, Beijing had already signaled that it would retaliate if the tariffs were activated. China has targeted U.S. food and agriculture with its own tariffs in the past. Speaking at the Rose Garden Tuesday, President Biden defended the increased tariffs, calling the move, quote, strategic and targeted. The new policy will boost tariffs on some of the most critical sectors, including semiconductors, electric vehicles, lithium batteries, solar cells, and medical products. Among them, taxes on imported Chinese electric vehicles will jump from the current 25% to 100%.
We have vulnerabilities in our supply chains. We've made it a national priority to diversify our supply chains.
What's more, experts and U.S. officials fear China could reroute its products through third-party nations like Mexico and Vietnam to avoid tariffs. Some say without efforts to prevent that, Chinese products could still find their way into the U.S. market. For instance, Mexico overtook China as the top source of U.S. imports. But concerns have risen over Mexico potentially turning into a transshipment hub for Chinese products. Meanwhile, an American soybean trade group is pushing for a round of levies on used cooking oil from China. They argue imported products threaten the demand for domestic ingredients. The world's largest electric vehicle maker, China's BYD, is apparently making a statement in response to Biden's new tariff announcement Tuesday. On Tuesday, for the first time ever, the Chinese EV maker launched a new product outside of its home country. BYD chose Mexico for the debut, a mid-size hybrid electric pickup truck. The company's chief of Americas says the company doesn't have plans to go to the U.S. market, so the tariff announcement doesn't impact BYD, adding that it had only considered the Mexican market and other countries' markets when making the decision and had not considered the U.S. The unveiling event in Mexico came just hours after President Biden announced steep tariff increases. The vehicle is for now only available in Mexico. A no-limits friendship. That's how the top leaders of China and Russia define their bilateral ties. Russian President Vladimir Putin is visiting China this Thursday and Friday. Here's what to look out for. Putin told Chinese state newspaper Xinhua one day before his trip that he backs China's plan for a peaceful solution with Ukraine. That's after war has raged for more than 2 years. Besides Ukraine, energy and trade also top talking points for the Chinese and Russian leaders. Putin will make stops in Beijing and the Chinese city of Harbin. During Putin's visit, the northern city is set to host a trade expo for Chinese and Russian companies. He's expected to discuss the potential for more trade opportunities with Beijing, an effort to counter Western sanctions against Moscow. Analysts say Beijing uses its influence over Moscow as a bargaining chip with the West, with the goal of securing more investment and trade opportunities from the U.S. and Europe. On top of that, some analysts say the Ukraine war could distract Washington and other European countries from keeping an eye on Beijing, especially as China's military ramps up aggression in the Indo-Pacific. Washington recently warned Chinese bankers and exporters that there would be consequences if they are found supporting Russia's military. A group of TikTok creators is suing the federal government over a new law that could lead to the popular platform's nationwide removal from U.S. app stores. President Biden signed the legislation last month, requiring TikTok to cut ties with its Chinese parent company or be ousted from the U.S. The group that filed the suit altogether boasts millions of followers. They claim the law would keep them from creating and sharing expressive material through their chosen publisher, as well as viewing content from other users. Their suit calls the law unconstitutionally overbroad. It's the second lawsuit filed against the government over the potential ban, driven by U.S. security concerns about TikTok's China-based parent company, ByteDance. Last week, ByteDance sued the government in federal court in Washington, alleging the law violates First Amendment rights by threatening to shut down a communication medium that's part of American life. TikTok has about 170 million U.S. users. That's about half the United States population. YouTube is complying with censorship orders in Hong Kong. A court recently banned a protest song called Glory to Hong Kong at Beijing's request. On Tuesday, YouTube said it would follow through and block access. Now, videos of the song on YouTube show this content is restricted in your country or region based on local law. YouTube said it's disappointed by the court decision and will, quote, consider options for an appeal to promote access to information. YouTube also said links to the videos will no longer show up on Google search in Hong Kong. Critics say the ban is a blow to freedoms in the financial hub amid Beijing's tightened control. Hong Kong does not have an official anthem. Glory to Hong Kong was written in 2019 during large-scale pro-democracy protests that year and became an unofficial anthem for many Hong Kongers. Moving to the South China Sea, on Wednesday, about 100 small fishing boats filled with Filipino protesters sailed near a disputed shoal to protest against Beijing. The Chinese Coast Guard has repeatedly warded off Filipino vessels in the region. Filipino activists were seen sailing off on wooden boats with bamboo outriggers near the Scarborough Shoal. Dozens of journalists also joined a three-day voyage. A lead organizer said their mission is to assert the Philippines' sovereign rights, adding the demonstration was peaceful and based on international law. Filipino authorities sent out Coast Guards and Navy troops to keep an eye on the protest. The shoal sits near a vast fishing lagoon. According to international arbitration, it's a traditional fishing area for Chinese, Filipino, and Vietnamese fishermen. But China asserted control of it 12 years ago. Manila sued Beijing over the dispute. The international ruling said Beijing has no right to control the region, but Beijing rejected the ruling. The U.S. backs the Philippines on the matter. The U.S. ambassador to China said in March that the shoal belongs to the Philippines. Chinese smartphone maker Huawei is revamping its retail strategy, aggressively opening flagship stores in China. Some of them are just a stone's throw away from Apple stores. Here's more.
Huawei is rethinking its retail strategy to do battle with Apple. The Chinese tech giant is opening or revamping stores as part of a bid to take top spots in the country's smartphone market. Some of the new outlets, including this one in Shanghai, are directly opposite Apple. The Huawei branches aim to outdo its rival with unusual features, including a gym. 4 such stores have opened just since December, and it marks a big change of strategy for the firm, which used to rely on licensed distributors. Counterpoint research partner Neil Shah says it's a sign the firm is serious about grabbing market share.
I think Huawei has stepped up in terms of where they want to go, and it's very clear with their execution and the choice of design which they have embraced within the store, and all different type of portfolios, experiences they're focusing on rather than just a singular product on a table. But it's more focusing on experience and involving the consumers within the store, right? I think that is a completely novel approach.
Other attractions at the stores include a coffee shop and a huge living space. It all comes as Apple's iPhone sales slide in China. They were down 6.6% over the first quarter. Huawei, by contrast, saw its shipments jump 110% and overtook Apple as the number 2 smartphone seller in China. Local media have hailed the rebound as a triumph over years of US sanctions on the company. Huawei is also seeking to produce its own chips as part of a move to counter the restrictions.
That's all for today's China in Focus on YouTube. We're now sharing a shortened version of our program here after being demonetized for 3 years. If you'd like to support us, consider donating. Find us at donorbox.org/China-in-focus or subscribe to our partner platform, Epoch TV, where you can watch our full episodes. Just click the link down below. Here's what to look out for in our second half. Operatives working for China and Iran reportedly created deep fakes as part of a campaign to influence U.S. voters in the 2020 election. More on the new report. Is Tesla CEO Elon Musk getting special favors from China, or is he walking into a trap? Our analyst breaks down China's potential leverage over Musk to influence SpaceX and its Starshield operations.
The U.S. is going to depend on Starlink when its satellites are taken down by China and Russia. So I'm very concerned, as are other people.
And Chinese companies dominating bids to explore Iraq for energy and taking 9 oil and gas fields since Saturday. More on that after the break here on China in Focus. Thanks for watching China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. See you tomorrow.